Very good. Good evening, gentlemen. I've been a ham for 45 years and I've always wanted to go on a DXpedition. And one way or another, it just didn't happen. Either it was family issues or work. I've been retired now for about 10 years, but I just never had the opportunity. Glenn Johnson, W0GJ, who lives in Iowa, just south of me. I think everybody knows Glenn. Invited me to participate in this one after they went to Sable the year before, and had a good time with that. And so consequently, I jumped at the opportunity to go to St. Paul. So with further ado, we'll go ahead. St. Paul is located, as you know, right on the tip of right off Nova Scotia. This is a long drive from central Minnesota all the way. Now we went through up through Windsor and around up through Quebec and New Brunswick into Nova Scotia to get there. If you've never been to the eastern part of Canada and you want to go someplace inexpensive and gloriously beautiful, I can really recommend Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick is just beautiful, especially Nova Scotia. It's just absolutely beautiful. So we headed up to the tiny island of St. Paul, which is just this little part of this larger island. It's about 25 miles off the coast of Nova Scotia, way up on the corner there. If you pull up a map, you'll be able to find it pretty easily. It's the northern end of the Appalachian Mountains. It is a very rocky, and this particular island is very barren, except for a lot of weeds and grass. Unlike that original slide, let me go back to it real quick, which is actually the way it was when the lighthouse was in operation in the 70s. It doesn't look that way anymore. As you can see my cursor here, maybe I can get a little better one for you. This is all these crevices have filled in with dirt. In fact, those steps, they weren't even there. I didn't even know they were there. And so we were able to anchor our tents and so forth, although we never really got down to you can't get into the rock. The island itself is made of gallium, which is a mineral. It has been thrust up from the floor of the ocean. And so everything, except for some locations right where the lighthouse is all this shaly gallium. And if you can imagine a million razor blades sticking out of the ground at odd angles, that's kind of what the gallium looks like on the island. It's really quite dangerous if you fall down. Fortunately, nobody didn't get hurt. The island is the entrance to the St. Lawrence Seaway. Every ship that comes through there has to go through there. There have been many people have died on the shores of the island, and you'll see why here in a few minutes. There's no place to land. It just pops right out of the sea. And so a lot of people have died. There's a lot of wrecks around it. The water is about 600 meters deep, or 600 feet deep, excuse me, not meters, 600 feet deep around the island. So it's not a friendly place. The lighthouse was manned until the 70s when it was shut down. With modern navigation, they didn't need the light any longer. We were there in late August and early September. We were very, very fortunate. The weather was wonderful on both ends. We got some wind and rain in the middle, but we got on the island and off the island with very, very little trouble. 60 to 75 degrees, very windy. No mammals, although we did think we heard some coyotes. We're not sure, and some bugs. These little, if you know what those little sow bugs are, little pill bugs, little gray jobs, millions of them, just millions. We just got to shake them out of everything. So, as I said, here's St. Paul Island, and all the shipping has to go through here. So we saw lots and lots of ships going in and out of the St. Lawrence Seaway, passing by north and east of the island. As you look at the island, here's a picture of the island as pretty much the way it is today. and it was when we were there. As you can see in here, the gallium, you can see how that's just thrust up at an angle, and the whole thing was just thrust up from the ocean floor by volcanic action at some point in time in the ancient history. And this is looking south across the island here. We're only 2 time zones from Europe, going off to the northeast here, and it's really quite an easy shot to Europe, as you'll see from our statistics in a few minutes. Back when we were doing it, these were the stats from the previous expeditions to it. More difficult on the high bands and low bands, and of course 15 through 40, not pretty good. But we'll show you our actual numbers here after a bit. There was a number of the guys in our group were there in 2019. Because of weather and some other considerations, they only did 15,000 QSOs at that time. So the previous group in 2016 had a lot better luck. So it was high on the list. It was number 50 when we went there globally, number 52 in Europe, number 19 in Asia. I'll tell you, the Asians, and they contributed to the expedition pretty nicely, because it was so rare for the Japanese and the folks in Indonesia, as well as the VKs. Our major sponsors were Flex Radio, DX Engineering, and Northern Cal. And of course, we had many other smaller donations. And of course, the OQRS system was also a great help in financing the trip. It wasn't a cheap trip. You'll see why here in a bit as we look at the equipment we took along with us, much of which they had in stock already, so to speak, but we had to acquire quite a bit more as it went. As you can see, because this is a very narrow channel, and the water, as I was mentioning before, because it's a graveyard for many people, is that if you shipwrecked anywhere around the north end of this island and the big island, we'll see more pictures of that shortly, there's just no way, as you can see, to get up onto this island to save yourself, and the surf is pounding against it. If you happen to get a calm day, I suppose it's not so bad, but you can see there was a spot right here in this, they call this the tickle, where it gets sheltered from the wave action. And there was a boat landing. There used to be actually a bridge right here between the north and south island back in the day when this was provisioned as a lighthouse, but that's long gone. You can still see the mounting and so forth if you go down this. Here, I walked this whole island, and not much to see. I have to say that. Moving on. We had to make 2 U-Haul trips from North Carolina, where Murray had a lot of this stuff stored in his shop and basement, WA4 DAN. So he had to go up there twice to haul stuff up, antennas, generators, tents, and so forth. Craig, K9CT, and Scott brought a lot of the station gear, and Glenn and I came up with the filters and a lot of the other equipment that we needed for the operation. Fortunately, we were able to find a fellow in Dingwall, Nova Scotia, who was fearless. I have to say fearless, because he delivered mostly water. He brought jugs of water, 5-gallon jugs of water. Actually brought us more than we needed. And a preliminary gas, a couple of gallons of gas, so we'd have something to when we first got there, and a generator. He'd been up there and cleaned a spot out for the helicopters to land, and you'll see that here momentarily. We also had helicopters back and forth between the island. Breton Air was a company we hired out of Nova Scotia there, and Pat into IEN has his own helicopter. Pat is Pat Dolan. His family they own Madison Square Garden. What more can I tell you? So having a having a helicopter. He was also the corporate pilot, flies their jet, their prop plane, and their helicopter. So he's a pretty good operator as well. So that's what he did. So that was the U-Haul they brought up there, and you can start to see the amount of material that we had. These are the Flex radios that Flex sent to Craig K9CT, who set up our network, hooked up the amplifiers and the maestros, got the radios all going, all the power supplies, networking and switching. You'll see some photos of that here shortly, as we show you the op tent when we get there. So that was the shipment that came into his place. Here he had set up at home to have everything ready to go when we got to the island. I'll have to say it, all that preparation really paid off, because we set up and we were on the air as soon as we turned the radios on, basically, and put some antennas up. So the Flex is a terrific radio, really performed well, even for those of us who weren't Flex users. With a few basic tutorial from Craig in terms of how to use it, how to tune it, how to move around a little bit. It actually worked really, really quite well. So it didn't convert me to Flex, so I'm still a Yaesu guy. So there's the amplifiers we took with us. They were all set up to go, and that's all that equipment in the back of Craig's Lincoln Navigator. This is the cabins where we stayed when we got there the first night, and when we came back to the second. You can see the south end of the big island from their front yard there, so it's kind of interesting. And again, the weather, as you can see from the next picture here, is really very, very, very nice. It was a beautiful day, had no problem with our logistics getting loaded up and so forth. They're very nice cabins with all the amenities and everything we wanted, including Glenn brought the internet with him. So I'll show you that Starlink system in a minute. And this is us getting ready to go. So this was our first trip. We had a bunch of our own personal stuff in gear in here, and in the back of the helicopter, we had the preliminary tents and a couple of things that we could set up. Glenn and myself and Scott were on the first trip over. There were only 6 of us, 6 or 7 of the 10 were there the first day. So unfortunately, a lot of the setup fell to 3 of us. And I will tell you, boys, that at the end of that first day, setting up tents and hauling stuff up, everything on the island is uphill. So if where the helicopters, you can drag it up 30, 40 feet up the hill, and to unroll the tents and so forth. It was a struggle, no question about it. Glenn Johnson, W0GJ, is also a helicopter pilot, although he was just in the left seat. And this is the first trip. Our pilot was an ex-Canadian military guy, young man, maybe in his late 30s. And man, that guy was good. I'm telling you. He had to come in here, drop a line down, hook these big nets on, to a hook on the bottom of the helicopter. I guess it was like, I don't know, 25 or 30 feet below the helicopters. You can see that picture just a minute ago, and then pick that up and then haul that away. We in all we had 6 trips, 6 trips with gear. As you can see, Murray's got all the gas cans lined up. These are all the antenna bags here, and some of the chairs and so forth that we had to take with us. There was really quite a lot of stuff. All of this stuff went via sling to the island. So you can see them getting ready for that lift. Pat came in a little later in the day with his private helicopter, and we loaded that up with all the radio equipment. It was the last thing to go out there. We had everything else except the radios on the island already. So they kind of buckle them into the back seat there. Amplifiers, more of the radios as they get going. And that's Craig K9CT and K9NW here in the back. And that's Pat in the flying the helicopter. And away we go. Like I said, the weather was just beautiful. So here you see, this used to be a helipad. It was made of 8x8 treated posts. It was really a beautiful thing. Very, very solid when it was built. But unfortunately, the ravages of sea air and sun and everything else eventually, you can see here at the end of this, where you can see it's rotten here. So they took a chainsaw and they just debilitated the thing. This was one of the sleeping tents for one of the guys. This is our mess tent. We'll get back to there. You're truly standing there watching them land here. So if you look, we were at 93 feet above the water. And again, this solar array was used to power some cameras, which are on the tower. We'll talk about that in just a minute. And you can see we had our tent set up over here around the base of the lighthouse. We had some misty days in the morning, especially when the sun came up, and got some beautiful rainbows, as you can see. It was windy from time to time. I'll have to say that. I think the worst we had was about 40 to 45 miles per hour, or knots, or whatever. No, 45 miles an hour wind. I was responsible for setting up tents, and I'm happy to say that not one of our tents blew down. As you can see, the water drove those waves pretty heavy. Let me back up one. This is the old lighthouse keeper's house. Unfortunately, it's in rather poor repair. At one point in the week, Pat brought out some residents from Dingwall who had lived there many years. In fact, as I recall, is he the daughter or the niece of one of the lighthouse keepers? And she had been there once before in the 70s or late 60s. And she was really kind of in tears because of how poorly, how bad things looked on the island now. The Canadian Parks Bureau will only let people go there in late August, early September. And we think this may be the last DXpedition to St. Paul for a number of years. I think we left them with a good taste in their mouth. It was very, very clean. We didn't leave a single, thing on the island, and we treated it with respect. But they're getting tougher and tougher because of environmental laws and so forth. These are some of the operators. This is Murray, WA4DAN. Adrian, are you guys familiar with Adrian Ko0SCA? He is he's for a young man, he's quite wealthy. He runs his own business, tech business, and as a result, he just travels. And so he came straight from here from Jarvis. He was on Jarvis on the boat. He came here and went home for a couple of days, and then went to Europe. And I saw him in Visalia, and he's on the Beauvais trip coming up. And so Adrian gets around. Terrific operator. And this is Dan W4 DKS, and Pat's not in the photo here. We were the B team, myself and Mike Tesmer, K9NW, and Scott NE9U. And this was the station here, and I'll show you a couple more other pictures. Our C team was Lou N2TU, Glenn GJ, and Craig K9CT. You might wonder, how do you operate that many? How do you operate with that many people and keep the station on the air 24/7? Well, the secret, and it really worked well, was 4 on, 8 off. 2 days in a row, and then 3 on and 6 off. That moved the clock so that everybody didn't have to get up at the same time of day. But you worked for 4 hours, then you took 8 hours off, and during the 8 hours, you got to sleep and you got to eat and you got to help put up antennas or maintain things. But by and large, it really did work. And after you get up after the station is on the air, it really worked well because you had plenty of time to get sleep. I typically sleep 6 hours a night anyway, and so it worked out really well to eat and to get the maintain the camp, so to speak, around there. So that's how we did it for 10 days. Worked out pretty well. This is just sort of a side note. The island is right on the time between Atlantic Standard Time and New Brunswick Standard Time. Literally goes right through the middle of the island. And if you've got an iWatch or a iPhone or something like that, as you walked across the island, your watch would change. So my tent was actually in Nova Scotia time, in New Brunswick Standard Time, and the operating tent was in Atlantic Standard Time. So you had to make sure that you were operating you were setting your 4 hours or your 8 hours off to the Atlantic Standard Time in the operating position, so that you weren't late to go through it. So it was rather confusing at times. What time is it? So that was kind of what we did. So our times were in NST, and they're 30 minutes ahead of Atlantic Standard Time for some reason. I'm not sure why, but that's the way it. But it did kind of screw up your time if you didn't. When we first realized it, we thought, I thought we started at, oh, wait a minute. And so we were having to always constantly adjust what time it was when we got to when we were operating. So here's the operating positions in the tent. This is one of the nice days, as you can see. It's Adrian and Lou, and can't tell who that is over there. Probably Dan, working. In this case, it looks like they're working CW. In those 3 positions. Oh, the wind is blowing. Oh, it's Craig. Now we know. You can see our bandpass filters and our updated QSO count all the time. And then on the other side was our FTH stations. Talk a little bit more about that in just a couple of minutes. So there is our 3 digital stations. In this case, like we'd be running 12, 17, and 10 or something like that. And as a consequence, one guy could easily operate all 3 digital stations because there's only 3 guys on each operating team. 2 guys work sideband or CW, and 1 guy watched the screens. Now, in the first few days, it was hectic, and sometimes we had to have 2 guys in there, but most of the time, we used SuperFox And I'll talk about that here in a couple of minutes, but that did make it a lot easier. I have to say that it was quite good. Just outside the operating tent was an A3 Yagi, 10, 15, and 20 meters. And then 17. Now our 12 and 17, we had if you look back, see, go back here a little. I'm sorry, I guess it may be coming up. 12 and 17 were interfering with each other terribly, even though we had a diplexer and filters for both 12 and 17. We were just, they were unusable against each other. We'll show you in just a couple of minutes. So this is our 10 meter 5-element Yagi. Just my sleeping tent was over here just to the left of this photograph. And this was an absolute killer antenna. I was just, so our 12 and 17 meter Yagi, and it's here. This was our 10 meter. This was our 30. They say your 30 meter signal is through the roof. Well, basically that's because we were actually, we actually ran it up through a corner of the old building here. We'll see the insides of that in a minute. And just a piece of wire and a good ground plane underneath it. It worked really, really well. It was super. This was my 40 meter vertical. Again, it worked very, very well. A lot of 40 meter activity. 160 meter inverted V, and also a 80 and 160. You wonder how I got them up there. There it is. Just shot lines up there and pulled it up, so we were able to have our antennas, over these railings, and it worked out. They really gave us a really good hanger support for our antennas. These were the bandpass filters for each band, a triplexer for the tri-bander, and this was a duplexer over here for a diplexer for the 10 and 12 meter antenna. But unfortunately, either the filter wasn't working, although I brought it home and we had it checked by a technician and it worked okay. But for some reason, we just couldn't do it. So I'll show you how we solved that here in just a couple of minutes. This is a picture of the connector, and the tags on the lines were the actual individual radio. So it's radio 4, radio 5, radio 2, and so forth. So you really couldn't screw it up. All you do is take radio 1 if you wanted to work 20 meters, and you plugged it into here, and in the back of it, of course, that was all the plumbing was set up so that it went directly to that antenna, and you couldn't put two radios on the same antenna at the same time, which did happen at a previous event and kind of blew up radio. So anyway, that worked already really quite well. The 12 meter Yagi then, because they weren't working so well, Murray, being the cowboy that he was, said, where can I put another antenna? So about 400 feet down the hill, and this is a big hill, guys. It doesn't look like much, but let me tell you, you're huffing and puffing coming up this hill. And he found this old piling that they'd put there that was apparently an endpoint for an antenna or for some reason. And it was half rusted off, but it was still pretty solid. And he got on a ladder and put a 12 meter beam on there, separated by this 400 feet from the shack. And it was gangbusters. It really, really worked. So here he is putting up this antenna put his ladder against that pole. And this right here is like a 200-foot drop off. So we were worried about him for a little bit, but it turned out okay. We had tremendous amount of activity on FT8, as you'll see by the statistics when we get there. Lee Imber, WW2DX, was with us. He's totally self-sufficient. He brought all this stuff himself. So here we've got a 6 meter Yagi. He had a moonbound 6 meter antenna set up. And over here, yeah, that's where he put that. And then later on, he changed that to a 432 antennas as well. Or I guess he's still got that on, and did make some moonbound QSOs. But so he was able to actually make it. So there was Lee in his shack. He brought all this stuff with him. So it's pretty wet. This was St. Paul Power. The little Honda generators are all brand new, by the way. Glenn and I went down to North Carolina in May last year and cleaned all the antennas that they'd taken to Sable, and ran and put oil in and ran in the initial run on these little Honda 2200s. They ran 10 days straight, 24 hours a day, 7 days for the whole time without being shut down. As you can see, there's helpers, gas helpers behind it, so that you could change gasoline without shutting down these generators. And it was quite a choir, I can imagine. It'd make a lot of noise, but boy, oh boy, did they work. I was really, really, really impressed with those little Honda generators. They really worked. This was our Starlink. Thank you, Elon Musk. And it really worked well. We had 100 megabit downloads, 30 up, and we all had our cell phones with us. And we had cell service from Nova Scotia. It's 25 miles. They had a cell tower on the island, but this then gave us our internet link so we could keep things going. We were not able, for some reason, to hook up to Club Log for a live feed, for a live stream. So that was annoying, but we did manage to make a lot of contacts and those sorts. As I mentioned, those solar panels I showed you earlier, and here they are on the previous slide. They are right here behind the setup for the Starlink. They had cameras pointed north and south out of the lighthouse, and believe it or not, they use for watching whales, to warn the shipping in the St. Lawrence Seaway of pods of whales as they move through between Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, and that's what those cameras were for. And it was we found that very interesting. Again, I said the difference in our standard times. This was actually Mike and I were in this tent. I think Scott was over here, and in the next photograph here, this was a picture. This is where a couple of the other guys were bivouacked as well. And as you can see, they were very roomy tents. They were 10 by 10. This one was. Ours were 8 by 10, but the 10 by 10 tents. And this is also the same tent we used for our operating. They were very comfortable, and they stayed up, I'll tell you, and the wind did blow. You can see that here as it's blowing against the side of that, and it is bulging it in, but they stayed up. I personally went out and used re-rod stakes about 18 inches, 24 inches long, and drove them in and put 4 and 5 different struts on each tent, especially from the Northeast, because I know that's where most of the wind came from. And so every tent was really anchored as well as could be, given the fact that you only can go down about 14 inches before you hit solid rock. A lot of say, well, how do you take care of your business here while you're on the island? Well, there it is. The Lowe's honey bucket. It actually worked out pretty well. They used these that sat around top of the bucket, and you used a one timer and took care of your business and rolled it up, and then we took that away by helicopter. And it actually worked pretty well. And there was also the gasoline reserves and so forth are there. We did have sun shower. If you ever used one of these, they really work well. You put that bag out in the sunshine for a couple hours, and that water is almost too hot to use. So you have to be careful it doesn't get too hot. But it's really a very, very, very good shower. And now for a little partial nudity. I know we all like a little partial nudity. There's Glenn after he took a shower, and it really, really worked out quite well. We did have a little storage. There was one room that wasn't, it had a door on it. And so some of the stuff got, that we didn't want to get too wet, we stuck in a corner there, and it worked out pretty well. This is our mess tent here. And down here in this little hollow, that worked out really well. We had a generator was there. Everything was boiled in the bag meals. You put some water in this little speed pot here, and in about a minute and a half, you had enough water to make a MRE. I got mine from Peak. I don't know if you've ever heard it, but the food there is, I have to say it, it's really quite good. I never felt hungry. I didn't find there was any reason not to enjoy them. They had good breakfast where you just added water and it turned into a granola with strawberries. So it was really quite tasty, and had a wide variety of different flavors of peak ready to eat meals. And there were some other types too that some of the guys had, but Glenn Richter recommended that to me, and I found it quite good. We had a microwave, and pop, and it was pretty well. They did bring us food from the island on 2 different occasions. We had chicken pot pie once, and then a spaghetti another night. So that was really nice to get hot food. Our experience with FT8 was really quite good, especially the first few days when the bands were just rock solid. Look from on any of the bands, just completely across the whole FT8 spectrum. Super Fox worked real well when the conditions were good and there were a lot of people calling. I don't have the shot here of the screen, I guess. Yeah, I do here. As you can see, well, in this particular case, you notice who's calling is we got terrific openings to Japan. As you can see in here, Japan, Russia, Eastern Russia, just balls to the wall, hour after hour of JAs. It was just amazing how many they were. So when you're using Super Fox, or when you're using Foxhound, is matter too, but in Super Fox, we were able to handle that deluge pretty well. So the operator you can click on any one of these call signs, it puts them in a queue up to 10 calls at a time. And then the queue works down. So the only thing the operator really had to do was click on the call signs and fill up the queue and keep the queue full. When the bands deteriorated a little bit on the 8th and 9th of September, this is August 31st, 30th, and September 1st, and you can see our rates went way down. Then we found that Super Fox didn't work so well, or under marginal band conditions, if it wasn't a lot of people calling. So we went to regular Fox and Hound for a while, and actually ended up at some point in time just using regular FT8. We were able to have a lot of queues though, and I'll show you in a couple of minutes. So Fox and Hound actually worked quite well. I think they're still refining it, so it'll be kind of interesting to see what happened. We put up a billboard for DX Engineering for the ships that went by going down. This is the helicopter that we thought it was kind of a cool picture with the rainbow here behind Pat's helicopter. And so we finally packed everything up. It took us about 4 hours to take everything down. It was astounding. It took us 3 days to put it up. We got it all down in about 4 hours. Of course, we had all 10 people on the island, and that makes a big difference too when you got enough people. So the last trip, there was Scott and Dan and Craig coming back. This was Murray Abrams. Murray Anderson. Murray was our logistics guy. He took care of the generators. He organized this whole thing. It's his thing in life. Murray, by the way, is a tower climber. And by that, I mean commercial towers. So he'll climb these 800, 900, 2,000 foot towers to change bulbs or to fix whatever is going on up there. He gets paid very well for doing that, as you can imagine, but that's his main job is Adams Tower Service, and he's quite an interesting fellow. Back on the island, Nova Scotia is a little museum dedicated to the island. Talks a little bit about shipwrecks and some memorabilia, jackets, shirts, and the like. This lighthouse actually was in service after they took it off the island. They put a lighthouse on a key not too far from here. And then when that was phased out, they brought that here and put it next to this little St. Paul Museum. So that's in Dingwall, Nova Scotia, right on the edge of the world. up there. As you can see, again, packed everything up in Craig's car, got that ready to go. And a little bit about our statistics. As you can see, we had 100, almost 115,000 QSOs. And as you can see, FT8, of course, was the workhorse, 6-4, as far as, almost half the QSOs were on FT8. Although we did make a lot of sideband, a lot of CW. Whenever you go on a DXpedition, everybody's yelling at you because you're operating the wrong mode. So, we started out on CW, and then of course we watched the various outlets, and we had a lot of people say, when are you going to work sideband? So we got back on sideband, and then of course, when are you going to get it back on CW? So we can't satisfy everybody all the time. I had a great time on RTTY. I love RTTY. I've always been a real RTTY, active RTTY operator. And so I was able to work RTTY for many, many hours, mostly on 20 meters. It worked out really, really well. As you can see, Europe dominated the pileups. I have no good words for the Italians. They were a pain in the neck. I had on numerous occasions had Italian stations follow me, trying to find where I was transmitting, and they dumped their call in over and over and over again. Really annoying. But what can you do? You put them in the log and hope they'll go away. 36% United States, North America, 54% Europe, and a scattering of Asians and so forth. We did pretty well into Japan. So the vast majority of the Asian contacts were with Japan. So for a total of 114,000. And here's a map. You can actually see the density of this. We in Central Europe, Japan, and the United States, with smatterings from Australia, South Africa. We did manage to work just everybody everywhere. We had a wonderful time. We had a beautiful day to get on the island. We had a beautiful day to get off the island. There were some staggeringly beautiful sunsets, as you can see. And it was just an overall excellent opportunity. I enjoyed it enormously. And I urge you, if you ever get the chance to do one, don't even hesitate. It's just a terrific opportunity. It's really a lot of fun.